Japanese. So still today, her mother tongue is Japanese. So just to give you a brief history of the book, and then I will just read a short excerpt, and then we can hear directly from Asha-san herself. The diary itself was written in Japanese from 1943 to 1947, and she was writing on scraps of paper, on whatever little pieces she could find on pencil. Um, and when she returned to India in 1947, she would keep it somewhere, but it was almost like misplaced. About 20 years later, her family urged her, "Okay, why don't you translate this diary into Hindi?" So she went back home. She sat there with the help of her parents, with the help of her professors. She translated it into Hindi. And it was published in 1973 in Dharmyug magazine, over 13 issues. Um, and till today, people come to me and say that I used to read Dharmyug 50 years ago, and that story resonated with me. So it really seems to transcend time. And just I picked up this book a few years ago. It was lying in in my cupboard, um, and I was just leafing through it. And even though I read it, I didn't read it in too much detail. But when I actually picked it up and I started reading it, I found it so gripping that I just shut myself into a room, and for 2 months, I was just translating it nonstop. Um, and immediately you realize, even though I was translating from Hindi to English, immediately you realize that the Japanese of it, the Japanese essence is still retained in the book. And if you actually think about it, just the way the minimalism, the structure, the lyricism, the similes used, they were all very Japanese, but translated into Hindi and then transported into English. And I'm just going to read a short excerpt from the book. This is set in 1945, February 1945, a few weeks before she goes to join the Rani of Jhansi regiment. The family is in Tokyo. Tokyo is being bombed. There's shortages. Japan is on the losing side at this moment. So winter, but this is Tokyo. Spring is a while away. A white blanket of snow covers the earth, and it feels as though the sky will burst into tears at any moment. Here and there, evergreen trees show the tips of their fingers. It is cold. We know dawn will rise tomorrow, but today, if conditions stay the same, we will freeze to our bones. There's no strength left in the gas stove. We make tea for Ma with whatever wood remains without milk. Hunger gnaws at us, but there's nothing to eat. Ma bartered a cotton sheet for rice some days ago in the village of Kokubunji, but there is only a handful left of it now. When Ashok doesn't care about his hunger, how can I say I'm starving? When baby sings, how can I cry? When nothing worries Ma, then how can I, her eldest daughter, no, her eldest, make a face? Ashok is only 8. On our way to college, there is an attack, and we rush into a trench. Looking up, we see a throng of American B 29 bombers hovering over us. We call them mosquitoes because they make a buzzing sound on approach and are smacked down to the ground like pests. Here they come, swarm after swarm, their propellers slicing the thin air. 2 mosquitoes and 1 Japanese airplane are on fire. They glide smoothly towards the ground, one after the other. The Japanese pilot, sun glinting against his green wings, waves his handkerchief, bidding farewell to the world. Taking leave from the red sky and the white earth, he becomes a martyr. In his mind, he has probably made a vow to be reborn in his holy motherland, Nippon. How brave is he? I wish I could attain a similar death. After college, I visit the ration office. I have a permit which allots us 500 grams of Burma rice. Ishikawa-san says they have 5 kilograms of rice for 10 households, meaning 500 grams per house. At least we get to see rice after a month. As soon as I return home, the siren begins to howl. Bo, bo, bo. The enemy pilots have reached the periphery of Tokyo. In a few minutes, carpet bombing will begin. Snatching the bag of priceless rice, along with the first aid kit and a helmet filled with cotton, I rush to the trenches with Tulu. The mosquitoes arrive soon after, dual sirens screeching around us. Bombing begins almost immediately. The air heaves and the earth thunders. From the ground, the Japanese try the best to retaliate with their anti aircraft guns. Japanese fighter planes roar upwards, and the calm evening sky bleeds rust. Intense fighting breaks out. Tulu and I quietly exit the trench. It's difficult not to be curious despite Ma's instructions. She has forbidden us from coming out of the trenches. The spectacle is truly entertaining. Imagine thousands of needles piercing the sky, a tapestry, a theater like no other. Cinder and fire, flaring planes, both American and Japanese, engaged in a duel to death. Watch the scene unfold. we too wish to hoist ourselves onto the burning cinders and crying with joy. The skies eventually become calm, and as the earth smolders, we return to our home. The government has forbidden us from lighting a candle or producing any sort of light. Only a traitor would light a flame or a cigarette at this moment. Holding Ma's shoulders, we bring her to the room and gather around her. Soon the radio informs us that the enemy has left Japanese territory. Ma's shadowy figure places something in her hands. I crowd, Ma, where did you find this bread? First, you all eat. Ma, where's yours? Ashok asks. He worries about Ma first, his hunger last. We break our bread into smaller pieces and feed her. After finishing our princely meal in darkness, we wash ourselves and slip under our blankets. Tonight, unlike other nights, Ma is not talkative, nor does she gently scold us. Who knows what suddenly happens to her, so joyful and busy, and then unexpectedly, a stony silence that petrifies us. She sings, sometimes in Bengali, sometimes a song of prayer, sometimes a Robindro Sangit, and abruptly during a verse, her voice breaks and she collapses into tears. We are too scared to ask her the reason. So this was in February 1945, and just a few weeks later, she went off to Bangkok to join the Rani Jhansi training camp. And she was there for a few months before the war ended and Netaji passed away. And after that, she returned to India in 1946, and they toured, she and her father, Anand Mohan Sai, who was also a freedom fighter, they toured the country and spread the message of what the INA warriors had done in East Asia. I would like to invite now Dr. Sugato Bose, who would also say a few words.
I'm delighted to be here uh, to celebrate the publication of Asha-san's War Diary before talking about my own new book, Asia After Europe. It is truly a very moving diary of a young girl growing up into womanhood. And she, of course, was born in Japan. Her father was a well known freedom fighter, Anand Mohan Sahai. And her mother, Shoti Sen, belonged to the Deshabandhu Chittaranjan Das family. Now, she was too young to join the Rani of Jhansi regiment when it was formed in 1943. And so it was that in 1944, she traveled from Tokyo to Taipei